What is up, my Squirtleites? It is I, your king, welcoming you back to more Let's Play Destiny. In the last episode, we began the Spire of the Watcher dungeon, taking care of the first two traversal encounters, learning the mechanics of this dungeon, which are incredibly simple. And now we're going to take that knowledge here into the first boss fight against Akalos, the Siren's Current, who is very much inspired by, I use that with heavy air quotes, the Consecrated Mind from Garden of Salvation. It's literally the exact same enemy model as Spire of the Watcher. So yeah, you kind of know what you're getting into here. In fact, the actual DPS phase is also inspired by that as well, and we'll explain how it works once we get to it. But just like in the previous encounters, you're still connecting arc nodes together. It's very easy to figure out where these arc nodes go, because even without the markers, you've got four walkways. Four nodes. Yeah, they get cute with it a few times, and you can also have, you know, the boss bumping you around and goblins attacking you and minotaurs and all that stuff. But aside from that, it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy to understand where you're actually supposed to go. So generally, what you do is you split it out with your team of three. Each person takes a walkway, leaving the fourth walkway unattended. Everybody completes their arc node. Then you all gather up on the fourth walkway, because that is where you're going to actually be doing all of your damage, because once you complete that last arc node, the DPS phase begins. But because this is Explorer mode, there is one crucial difference this time around. After a damage phase is done in normal mode, you have to then redo all four connections again, every single time without fail. But in Explorer mode, for Rite of the Nine in particular, they bestowed mercy upon us, and I can't wait to actually show it, because once you have done your first DPS phase, you only have to complete exactly one connection again to start up the next DPS phase, and then you can just do that over and over and over again. This is not how it normally works, so I don't want to give you guys the wrong impression, but I did want to point that out. It is a nice change, but it is also not normally what you're going to be seeing here, so keep that in mind. But you notice that the Minotaurs are kind of everywhere. There's actually only ever one Minotaur alive at a time, but some things to take note of here and be very aware of while doing this encounter. First of all, Harpies. They have got to go. You do not want a single Harpy alive when you start your DPS phase, or it is going to cause you a lot of problems. They just, you know, they have these laser beam shots that will just flinch you unendingly, and they can do a little bit of extra damage, which you can't afford, because this fight is actually not a good stand in place and do a lot of damage fight, and it'll make sense why once we actually get started on DPS. The goblins can be annoying, but you mainly only need to worry about the goblins that are on your current walkway that you were trying to complete. If they're all dead, you should be good to go. The main reason being is that they will start to slowly walk towards you during damage, and if they jump up in the middle, they can actually get in the way of your mechanics. But now that everything has been activated, we can explain how this works. So much like the Consecrated Mind, you're going to need to shoot eyes on this thing, but you don't have to worry about this whole mechanic of one person can see the eyes and the other person can't see the eyes. No, you're just going to have a whole bunch of eyes that you're going to have to shoot, which is the main reason I am using an auto rifle for this fight, because you want as many bullets as possible to take all these eyes out. Trying to do this with a hand cannon is so much more infuriating in my opinion. But take out all the eyes, and once you have done that and they are all down, it is damage time. Now, as you do damage, Akalos is going to start to make its way back to the center slowly. Deal as much damage as you possibly can along the way, but be mindful of the hole that is in the floor in front of you, which I am now jumping over. The goblins can also jump up out of that, which is another reason you want to make sure all the goblins on your walkway are dead. But keep following it, doing as much damage as you can, staying on the move so you don't get out of good damage range. But eventually, the DPS phase is going to stop, and once it stops, Akalos is going to activate a force field that's going to push you back. Now, you want to make sure that you are still, like, basically facing Akalos directly when this happens, because if you're off at a weird angle in any way, you're going to get sent flying off the map. And unless you have grapple, which I obviously have here and is, you know, a light fall thing, you know, again, we're in the future here. Unless you have grapple or something like that, or an eager edge sword to save yourself, you're going to die. So you want to make sure that you stay as rigidly within the bounds of whatever you're trying to do as possible. Now notice that there is only one objective marker this time, because again, like I said, they don't ask as much of you, but I am still making a concentrated effort to kill all of the Harpies before I actually start doing the objective, because like I said, they are annoying. So annoying. By far the most annoying enemies. Everything else is not nearly as bad to deal with. The goblins are really going to only get in your way of, like, slightly impeding you while you do damage. They're never going to kill you, but the Harpies can mess you up, because there's actually nothing worse during a DPS phase than being flinched out of your attacks versus actually being killed during them, which, I mean, obviously on this difficulty is a complete non-issue. But even on the harder difficulties, you still would rather be hurt than be flinched. Trust me, every single time. There's nothing more frustrating than having an entire opportunity to do damage and not doing the fullest damage because you kept missing your shots because of things that were outside of your control or because people didn't do their job. This is why killing these enemies is important. So again, we jump into the next DPS phase, and we just go straight to it. This is why I'm not cutting these out, because it's very straightforward, although I don't think I'm going to kill it this time because of the damage I did last time. You can kind of walk on the edge of the walkway as you go. And I should also point out that if you can get its health bar all the way down to the line on the... which I don't think I actually do this time around, but if you can ever get it past that line, it'll actually extend the damage phase. So if I was able to do it this time, I wouldn't have to do a third damage phase, but I don't think I'm going to quite get there, unfortunately. Really, really close, but not enough. So we're going to have to do one more phase, which I'm just going to kind of like rush to as much as I can and get this thing done. But again, we got harpies to deal with and all that stuff. Notice that it's also staying on the exact same one every single time, too. I mean, I just think it's neat. I like that they just kind of added these little quality of life improvements. There's actually some quality of life improvements, although I will argue, none of the ones in Spire the Watcher I would want in the main one. They're just convenience, but I also think that the way that this dungeon normally behaves is perfectly fine. I don't have any problems with it. However, there were some changes they made to other dungeons that I actually would have preferred if they kept, but maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later when I actually get around to covering those dungeons. But for now, let's just get this fight done, and then we can explain how the rest of this dungeon works, because this is a cool fight, but it's also probably the most annoying in terms of the bullshit that can kill you. Like, the number of times I've just been knocked around by the physics, or the boss knocking me off the cliff, or some stupid harpy coming in out of nowhere. That's definitely happened more with this fight than it, like, pretty much any other boss fight in any other dungeon. I've just dealt with annoying nonsense. The next fight is much more of just a straightforward challenge, and is also the main reason I did not want to solo this on the normal difficulty, because that would have been like 7 or 8 phases. Again, it'll make sense why when we actually get to it. But for now, let's just kill Akalos, knock out that last eye. Don't even need to pull out the super this time, because it's just going to die. And there you go. That is the fight.
Foe breaks, and so does their hold over the security systems. Perhaps now we can... No! They're driving the reactor core to a meltdown. It's going prompt critical. Those power surges were intentional. Get to the reactor, lest we lose everything.
Okay, now we can actually talk about the story surrounding this dungeon a little bit more. I've kind of let Osiris do most of the explaining, but in case it's not completely obvious what's actually happening here, the Soul Divisive, which are the major Vex threat in the system nowadays, are basically creating one gigantic distraction, and they are being used by the Witness to create this distraction by trying to steal all this data and then eventually destroy it. We'll talk about more what the Witness is actually doing towards the end, because Osiris is going to go on a little tangent at the end. A tangent that I actually had to edit in, by the way, because I stupidly, in this footage here, did not actually record the entire thing of. I ended up going to orbit before he finished, so that was dumb. So you're actually going to see from another run that I did in the past that I did not want to use as the main footage here. From another run, there is a run where I actually just kind of stuck around at the end of the dungeon and just kind of hopped around with my friends. And that one, you'll actually hear Osiris's full explanation once all is said and done. So that's going to get spliced in at the very end of this episode here, just so that you can hear the entire thing. But the way that this part works is that as we go down, you're going to want to shoot all of these nodes. Notice that I was very slow there, so now you're going to get to see a much better version of this. So where I actually like line them all up in time and then shoot all of them. They're on a timer, and if they close before you've shot them all, you're going to have to reset the sequence. But then we jump down, and then we have to make our way through Fan Blades, which is the biggest solo flawless run killer in the entire game, even though it's actually not that hard to deal with if you are a hunter. If you are a Titan or a Warlock, though, it can be a little bit more tricky, because if you get knocked around, it's a lot harder to recover.
What we've seen here proves my visions have merit. We must secure the complex to convince Ikora. Trust is a frail thing, much as our mission. This can restore her faith in me. I need this.
We're working on it, Osiris. This dungeon's implications are not just important for what's going on in Season of the Seraph, but they're actually going to be very important for Lightfall when we get to it as well. So keep in mind the things that are actually going on here and what the Witness is actually doing, because this is going to lead a lot into the events of Lightfall. Putting that much story stuff into a dungeon, which a lot of players don't play, I actually don't hate it, because I feel like dungeons are one of the few things that, I don't know. There's definitely lines to like people's comfortability with playing with other people. I know that's always been a big issue with a lot of people in the Destiny community. You have the players who play everything, and then the players who play solo. And a lot of the players who play solo get very peeved, and it gets under their skin that they're going to have to engage with content that requires them to actually play with other people. And I can understand that to an extent. I actually was that kind of player for the most part in Destiny 1. I understand where they're coming from with that. However, dungeons are the one thing where I'm like, you don't have an excuse. Even though it's hard, even though it is not designed for solo players under normal circumstances, nobody has an excuse to miss out on these, because there is almost never anything so mechanically dense. Also, I love how I got myself blown up there. There is almost nothing so mechanically dense in any dungeon that a player can't, at the very least, LFG a team that they don't even need to communicate with. You do not need to talk with your friends and talk with people while doing dungeons in almost any circumstance outside of, I would say, like the hardest dungeons in the entire game, which we haven't even gotten to those yet. We are nowhere near that in terms of difficulty. All the ones we've seen up to this point, they're fine. Even this one, you just complete the nodes. If you don't know what's going on, just get to work and do the thing and then kill the boss. That's it. That's all there is to it. There's like nothing to communicate here. So I don't know. I don't really have sympathy for people who skip out on this content in particular. There's no reason not to experience it. I don't care if you're solo or not. Just do it, and you will definitely be wealthier for it, because it is good stuff. I understand the raids. But dungeons, I do not think that that is a valid or a fair excuse. Just play the game. Now, there is under one of these stairs, and I actually found it first try, another secret chest, so we're going to go and grab that just to get some additional loot. Figured I'd show that. This and the one in the traversal section after the first encounter are the only two secret chests in this entire dungeon, but figured that I'd show both of them. And now, if I can get out of here, there we go. Now, we get to get into the final boss of Spire of the Watcher, which is, I think, a very, very cool encounter, but on normal is far and away the most harrowing and certainly a difficulty spike from even the rest of the dungeon. That's a long way down.
A Vex mine directs power to the reactor. Kill it, and the complex should stabilize.
Okay, so let's see. What would be a good thing to go with here? I'm definitely going to want this shotgun. And I guess that's it. I mean, what am I running? I'm running the grenade launcher. Okay, that makes sense, actually. This boss, Perseus. Yes, that's his name is Perseus, which is, sounds like a very normal name under the circumstances. But yeah, Perseus is a big chicken. That's right. It's one of those things. And Perseus is very annoying because unlike the last boss, who can really only physics you around, this boss can kill you very easily, whether from its shots or from its stomp attacks. Not to mention, it is going to be spawning supplicants all the freaking time. Now, we still have nodes to connect, but this time the nodes that we're going to be connecting are actually kind of random. First, you have the timed mechanic, where you're going to have to shoot all 5 of these nodes. Then, the 2 strings are going to open up. Where they are is random. You just have to figure them out. There's 4 total in the room, but only 2 that are active. And then you're going to need to follow those into the next room. That is where Perseus actually came from at the start of this fight. Now, luckily, supplicants can't really follow you around the edges of this room, more so just in the middle. But every other enemy can still kill you. So keep that in mind. But we're going to get both of those nodes finished. But the thing is you need to make sure that when you finish the last node, that Perseus is in the back room, the one that we're finishing the connection in, not the front room. On this version, it waits for you, like it's willing to wait until Perseus walks into that room, but on normal mode, it doesn't wait. So if you close the door before you're ready, you can actually end up losing out on an entire damage cycle. So make sure that Perseus is in here. He's always going to be following you, so just draw him in. Once you do that, you'll get Reactor Surge, Imminent, Seek Safety. You're going to need to run out of the room, but don't just immediately get ready for damage yet, because you're going to need to shoot all those nodes one more time. You're going to want to make sure you have Arctrician if you don't already. There should be a Minotaur alive somewhere at all times. Pick up the buff, just in case you need it, and then you're going to have to shoot all of these nodes that are out here to get started on damage. So same as before, you're on a time limit, shoot them all, and once you shoot that 5th one, everything despawns except for Percy's. Now, Percy's damage phase is really, really short. Really, really short. So you're going to need to be prepared to do as much damage as possible. So I'm using a bait and switch rotation here, which is my shotgun, my primary, and then switching to grenade, dumping as much as I can, back to the auto, back to the shotgun. It auto reloads my mag and keeps bait and switch going, and it's just this rinsing and repeating over and over again. When this dungeon first came out, rockets were actually the way to go, because trying to do precision damage on this type of enemy sucks. His crit spot is just way too tiny, so rockets and grenades are always the recommended option. Of course, I do run out of ammo eventually, and that means I'm going to have to resort to using my special in the meantime, while also trying not to die, which is a very easy thing to do in this phase if you are not careful. Now, this damage phase is actually, I believe, a lot longer in this difficulty than it is in normal, because in normal, I mean, that was pretty short. But in normal, that damage phase lasts about 20 seconds, I would say. It's pretty darn brief, and that is the main reason why, if I had run this on normal difficulty, it would be like 6 or 7 phases, because I just can't on my own put out enough damage to do that when his health is like quintuple of what it is on this difficulty. So it would have been a very, very long fight otherwise. So I skipped the second damage phase so you guys can at least see the kill, but you get the gist of how this fight works now. I didn't need to show really any more than that, so we'll just do the final damage phase here and kill it. This is the same attempt, though. I did not die in the middle. I swears on Scout's honor that I did not cut out a death or anything in the middle. If I had on this difficulty, my God, that would be so embarrassing. No, this is... no excuse for that here. No excuse for that here. But yeah, you get it. Kill the Hydras, kill the Minotaurs, get Arctrician, shoot the nodes where they appear at random, follow the nodes into the end room, and make sure Percy's is in there when you complete that final node. That's it. That's all there is to it. It's very simple. But because you're being chased by the boss constantly and supplicants and being harassed all the freaking time, it can get a little scary. It can get a little scary, like a lot, actually. So this fight is, I mean, I've died in this fight more times than I can count. This is definitely the part of the dungeon that's killed me the most in my many runs through it, just because you never know what's going to sneak up on you. As long as you have, you know, your bearings straight and you're constantly on the move, it's not too bad. And again, having something like invisibility, like I have right now, makes this a lot easier too. But I think... oh, I like how that one actually wasn't lit up for whatever reason. The objective marker. I think it's because it's locked onto the first one that I attached to, and now it's like kind of the objective marker's kind of lost its place a little bit. It's whatever was the last one that I activated. Also, my God, the frame rate is just like tanking in here. What is going on? That is insanity. But kill that Hydra. Okay, there we go. We just got to get around him, and then we can actually work on completing this thing. The last node is always on one of these 4 towers perched in the back of the room, so that's how you know you're actually finishing the entire thing. It looks like... okay, now it's connected. There we go. At least I believe it is. Let's just go around. Because sometimes it's better to just do that. Just leave the room and try to see if you can draw him out away from where you're at, because he is really the scariest thing in this entire room. It's one of the few times where the boss is the scariest thing in the room. Like, in almost all other cases, there's always like an enemy that is specifically designed to be the most annoying. Also, I love that I got launched into safety there. So great. All right, now let's leave the room. And once we do that, then we can get this last damage phase done, which, I mean, actually, I think the second damage phase is like was my worst one anyway, so I guess I'm glad I didn't show that. A little embarrassing, but what are you going to do? All right, there we go. So once again, same as before, make sure that I'm at least reloaded this time so I can be ready. Plant that shadow shot so I can do extra damage. And here we go. Same as before, I don't think that shotgun quite reached. There we go. Now we can get bait and switch going. Okay, got it. Get Envious Arsenal to activate so I can dump more in. I'm not going to have enough rockets for this. So I'm probably going to have to try to finish it off with my extra damage that I have available. And if you don't know what the heck is going on here, don't question it too much. just see that damage is being pumped into this boss, and we are going to kill it, and so we can get Osiris's final monologue for this entire dungeon, and then we can move on with Season of the Seraph. So, oh my gosh, it's so close. It's so close. One more, two more. There it is. Wow, and it literally said overcharge his shields at the end. Could not have been closer.
This was a clever incision by the witness. A multi-front attack. Sabotage us, glean knowledge, and annihilate any trace of advantage. Extrasolar colonies. Ages ago, Saint and I thought we'd leave the city once we'd made it safe. We'd explore the universe. That time never came. A matter of finite seconds lost in the margins then. Now, there's only the want of more. But we learned to make do, young wolf, and turn the edge of defeat into victory.
And there it is. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for this dungeon. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.